Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to you guys who are here, as well as you who are joining us via the live broadcasting. My name is Yasmine, and I don't know if Kendall boasted me a little too much, but I hope I could do half the things he said I could do. I have the distinct honor of moderating this panel discussion. It is my first, and I hope to learn a lot from it. I suppose it's part of the inclusion that we're talking about. I would like to thank all of our panelists here today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be here, and of course to educate and to inspire those of us who will be listening. This next panel discussion is entitled Pathways to Inclusion, Empowering Communities for a Resilient Future. As we know, or as we hope to know, maybe some of you in the audience do not know as much about inclusion, but of course, by the end of the session, we hope that you will have learned quite a bit from our discussions here. Inclusion is not simply about access, it is about participation. It is about power. It is about belonging. And it is about the capacity of communities to shape the conditions of their own lives, leading to greater outcomes for all. In St. Lucia, as in much of the Caribbean, we have a great ambition to innovate. However, innovation that excludes specific communities or groups is incomplete. And so out of this panel, we are hoping to answer the questions. What exactly is innovation? What does it actually take to walk the pathways to inclusion? Who champions inclusion? What are some of the hindrances or the structural barriers to inclusion? And what is the role of social enterprise in fostering inclusion? And of course, how do governments ensure inclusion? So, to start off today, I would like our panelists to just say a little bit about what is inclusion to them. Anyone who's willing to start can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Stephen Victorin, Superintendent of Police. I am responsible for the Southern Policing Division. I sit here as the Delivery Partner Manager for the King's Trust International Team Program. The Team Program is a youth development program focused on targeting at-risk youth. And I must impress that when I say at-risk, commonly people think of young people in conflict with the law. That is not the case with all consideration or us using the terminology at risk. We consider that all young people, due to how easily they could be influenced, we consider them to be at risk. So the team program is focused on targeting those young people into developing them into more confident, more resilient, and ahead innovation. So the program is meant to help develop those young people to either find employment which is already established or to spark that innovative spirit to them creating employment for themselves and others. So that is the team program in a nutshell. For me, resilience is about overcoming challenges, irrespective of what you face with, whether it helps uplift you or poses challenges which leads you to sometimes think that you may think to give up. But you resist, innovate, and overcome. So that is my perspective of innovation.
Thank you. And specifically, when it comes to inclusion for you, what does it mean when you hear the word inclusion?
My thought when I hear inclusion is that all-encompassing, that there's no prejudice. And for me as law enforcement, the absence of prejudice is crucial, because we look to have or create an environment that every single member of society feel that they considered, their thoughts, their feelings are considered, and they receive the same service irrespective of who they are, where they live, age, irrespective, that everyone feels the same.
Thank you. Thank you. What we heard from you here, sir, is that, of course, every single person matters. Whatever your background, whoever you are included. Can somebody else share what inclusion means for them?
Is it working? Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Sophie Picave. I've been in St. Lucia for 6 years, and I would like you to bear with me. English is not my first language, as you can hear. So please accept anything that I say that is not perfect or to the T.
You're included.
Thank you very much. Inclusion for me is a little bit like my colleague said, no one should be left behind. And when you design a project, when you design a program, when you have an activity, anything, you have to think out of the box and say, okay, are the people suffering from disability going to be included? Are the people who are socially excluded, for instance, the people from the Bordelais facility, can they be included by one way or the other to the program? How can people who don't have the money to come to my event can be included to the program? So inclusion has to be thought through with a capital I in every capacity and in every field. Make sure that what you do, what you create, if you create an app, make sure that there is a way that if someone is blind, the person can access the app. So that's what inclusion is really for me. No one should be left behind. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, that principle is one of their fundamental principles, leave no one behind. And we keep hearing that as basically the theme of what inclusion means. And I thank you for starting it out and also for even going to my next question, which I think you already touched on. When you think of who is not included, who can sometimes be left behind, who are these people, who are these communities? And some of them, of course, like I said, you've already touched on, but I will allow Miss Tanzia to go on and start the discussion on who are some of these communities and persons who are often left behind.
Okay. In many instances, young youth, primarily. For our ministry, especially now given the portfolio of older persons are usually left behind. The sick and the mental health, persons suffering with mental health illnesses are normally left behind. These are probably the widest sectors in St. Lucia that are left behind. When we plan and when we execute projects, we sometimes don't, or more than often, don't consider them in our designs and in implementation.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What about you? Who do you think is often left behind?
In my capacity as founder of my foundation for mothers, those who are left behind are the single mothers and the unemployed moms, unemployed families, especially in the low economic areas. I find the challenge is, on my part, is usually reaching them. They're not included. That's how I see it. That's what I've observed based on reaching out to different organizations, reaching out to even governmental agencies. I'm trying to reach the mothers in the lower end of the economical part, they are not included. And this is the aim of For Mothers. I mean, we work with all mothers, but they are one of the most vulnerable set of mothers because they don't have access and they don't know that there are avenues available to them so that they could receive the kind of help, because help doesn't always come in the form of finance. Sometimes, you know, we need the mental help. You know, we need the support groups, and they don't know that those are available to them. Yeah.
Thank you. When it comes to mothers, well, women generally, but even more so what you said, women of lower socioeconomic statuses, single mother women. So the intersecting roles of people, not just as, of course, their gender, women, but women who have children alone without the help of a partner, a spouse, women who do not have an income, who are unemployed, women who are from the lower socioeconomic statuses, and of course, women who are in rural communities. Often, it compounds. When you have all of these different roles, it compounds to make that person even more vulnerable and therefore at greater risk of being excluded. So thank you for your contributions in regard to that. That was really insightful. What do you think can be done to reach these marginalized and vulnerable and often excluded groups? Like, Ms. Tanzia, you said oftentimes you design programs and projects to reach persons, and these persons are not even really thought of when you're designing it. Of course, I'm sure a lot of work is being done to correct that. In today's world, we have gotten a lot more cognizant of inclusion and why it's necessary. But what do you think we can do to have less persons excluded? Anybody?
On our part, this is one of the reasons that I formed this organization, meeting those vulnerable mothers. This is what really opened my eyes to see that there are women out there that just don't have the support and they don't know how to reach out for it. And we created a support group. We started as a support group where we opened a platform where mothers could meet and talk. Because a lot of times mothers go through situations, sometimes even other mothers like themselves don't understand. Because it's so taboo to say, I'm depressed and I feel like hurting my child. I feel like hurting myself. People don't speak because they fear the judgment. So by creating support groups, by partnering with local businesses, other organizations, other non-for-profits, creating safe spaces for moms is one of the ways, well, some of the ways that we have come up with to, help reach those mothers.
Go on, Ms. Picavet.
I mean, I'm here in the capacity of the Sorority Foundation, and that is, for those who don't know it, one of the solutions to reach people that cannot be reached, even if we're trying to be inclusive, but we know we are facing a barrier, because to use the Sorority app, yes, you do need a phone, yes, you do need service. So as much as we are getting there, we are going to communities, we still have that issue of being able to have the app and have a phone. So yes, we are inclusive, but of course, inclusion always comes with a limit. If someone had a magic wand, and we wouldn't be here talking.
Yes.
But can I take a minute to just tell people what it is?
Of course.
For those who don't know. So the Sorority is a free app that you can download on your phone if you have service. And that allows any girl above 12 years old or any woman, if they are a victim of something or if they see something, to trigger the app. And in less than 2 seconds, the 50 closest people get an alert. And this works very, very well in community. So, but we also know that in a lot of shops in Saint Lucia, in remote places, have Wi-Fi access, and we see a lot of people gathered around the shop to get the Wi-Fi signal. So as much as we need data, there's always a solution. I mean, I like to tell people there's no problem, only solutions, but I wish we had them all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think one of the ways that I'm looking at it in terms of inclusion, I've listened to the two ladies talk about their organization and the work that they do. And there in it lies inclusion, because inclusion, when you talk about inclusion, you talk about partnerships. Yes. And the fact that you're saying that you can't do it alone, that means you need partners. So how it is that you can access the right partners. So now you need to scale up when you look at your organization in terms of getting persons involved or getting more communities to accept or to understand the work it is that we all do. We now have to look at how it is that we build our networks to foster that kind of partnership. The partnership that I need more hotspots. How do I engage maybe a parliamentary rep, or how do I engage the internet or telecommunication community, be it through iTech, ITEL, and all of those things? How it is that you get into those networks to further your agenda. So I think when we speak, a lot of it from our end has to do with partnerships and the voice, advocacy, how it is that we advocate for those kinds of changes.
If I may, inclusion, as much as we have the availability of electronic media, which can reach many in seconds, I don't think anything beats physical interaction. Because remember, some of those individuals we seek to impact most are those who feel excluded. I may look at my device and recognize there's a message blasted out. But if I feel isolated, it might not be for me. So my attention may be only for a few seconds. So I think the ideal, as much as possible, we use electronic means, but it's important also to reach out to people physically. By that, they feel that you are very much concerned. I mean, you're passionate about interacting with them, and your commitment to helping them is actually demonstrated. And that works with the team program. We actually go out into the communities. We also use past participants. So those people we've interacted and impacted, we use them to reach out further to anyone else in their circle, or anyone else they recognize whom the program could be impacted by. That is one of the means we use to actually reach out and include as many as possible.
I think you're touching something that is very important, and we tend to put that aside, is inclusion does not match with isolation. And today, in rural community as well as in city, a lot of people are isolated. And sometimes you don't realize that just smiling and holding the door to someone may be the only interaction they have. Same than touching old people. A lot of them are not being touched anymore, and this isolation is the worst thing that can happen for inclusion. So thank you for bringing it up.
I love your points. Social media is good. You know, the internet is good. But oftentimes we do not reach not even half of those we need to. And, you know, going on the ground and doing the outreach, this is something that is very, very important for nonprofit organizations. And, you know, any organization that you have, whether it be a business or whether it just be, you know, a nonprofit, it is always important to reach out personally to the people that you're trying to get. We may have an online platform, and there are people that know they have a problem and they will search for that. But there are people they cannot even identify what they're going through. They cannot even identify the problem. They cannot even identify. We had a health fair one time, and we were talking about postpartum depression, and I specifically targeted men to let them know what postpartum depression is, and they were in awe. They were like, wow, you know, because they really didn't know what it was. They didn't understand what it was. And how many men will go and sit in front of a computer and look up postpartum depression unless they're faced with it at home with their wives or their partners, you know? So doing the community outreach along with the online platform, it works hand in hand, and it is very important to do as much as you can on both ends.
Yes. So I think we could all agree that no one method should be employed. We should have a multi-pronged approach if we're going to include, if we're going to build resilience, if we're going to have stronger communities. There's no one method or one, one suits all. Additionally, we can also say from your contributions here that no one person, no one organization, no one entity can do it. We need partnership. We need partnership for the goals, SDG 17. And so, of course, one of the means that we build resilience is the community. Communities have, for a very long time, been crucial in building resilience. We see it through things like Kudme. We see it through things like the Susu. You know, we have used community for a long time in building financial, economic, social, all sorts of resilience. And so I would like for you, my panelists, to let me know from your perspective or your experience, what are some of the initiatives that are being employed by communities? Maybe you could name one community and one initiative that is currently on the ground today in 2026 that has happened or that is happening now to build resilience. What is one community or one initiative being employed by a community to build resilience?
National community or foundation or national community?
I will leave you to it.
The foundation.
It's a community.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, so you speak of partnership. The team program is the embodiment of the idea of partnership. So as I mentioned, the program is led by the Royal Central Police Force. And what we found that our conventional means of doing things had not realized the true objective that we've had, that being to create safer communities. And you speak of inclusion, let people feel part of the solution and that they feel that their lives are being transformed as individuals and to the greater make our country a safer place. So the hammer approach of policing, we thought that we needed an alternative. And research was done and we discovered the team program. In fact, it was then the Prince Trust International. Since the coronation of the King, it was rebranded to the King's Trust in April 2025. So the program really spearheaded by the police, but it's executed in partnership with the community. So under the structure of the program, we have delivery partners, employee partners, which helps us execute the program. So our delivery partners are agencies like Suffolk Lewis Community College. For education, we have the St. Lucia Fire Service. We have our employee partners are those which provide the opportunity for the young people to experience what it is to perform in an actual workspace. Because we know often enough the young people go seeking employment, and one of the primary questions, where have you worked? What is your job experience? And I must applaud our employee partners within the South, who has been very accommodating to receive, or having received those young people for a two-week period, and allowing them to grow. That they can now go out there and now be able to respond to that question in the affirmative. So the program, the team program, is absolutely nothing without partnership. Okay, and those partners include funder partners. Okay, on occasion, those young people need certain items to help them get through the program. And I must highlight one of our partners, Weezo, was quite receptive.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Can anybody give me a next example of?
For us at the ministry, because it's a social ministry, it is very broad. It's cross-cutting, and for that reason, we have several pockets or sectors that we're supposed to be dealing with. And each sector carries its own challenges, its own policies and programs. But what is the conduit for all of that is what the ministry's social protection agenda. And under that social protection agenda, we take care of older persons. So probably in the next couple of months, you'll be hearing the buzz about the policy for older persons, and having it ratified by cabinet and to become in the public domain. We take care of gender. Now that gender is now under our portfolio, and you will be hearing about all of the policies on the gender. But what social protection really does is that it brings all of this to the fore and to actually place in the respective sectors what it is that we need to address. So in summarizing it, I will say that what we really focus on is building back better. So for us, this is what inclusion is. There may be a law, there may be a policy that actually deals with certain things. However, you now need to revamp, and you now need to look at your policy. So probably your policy may have been from 2011. We are in 2026. What can we do now, or what it is that is necessary? Because times change, seasons change.
Yes.
What is it necessary that we have to do to make sure that we are in line and in check with what all of the global phenomena and agendas that's happening, inclusive of 2030, and keeping it in check with the 2030 agenda? So these are some of the things that we do, because we have targets, we have objectives that has to be fulfilled under each of these and under the respective mandates.
And to piggyback on something you said with regards to the older people, that is one of the most marginalized groups. And even when Mr. Victorine spoke to the physical presence of people and isolation, and the fact that not everybody could use maybe technology and whatnot, I was really thinking about, the older persons, especially those who are most vulnerable. They live alone, they probably don't have children, they could be easily violated and whatnot. And so it's important, and I love to hear the fact that we're working on, policies and programs and social protection for a widely marginalized group. Yeah. But thank you all for your contributions on that. My mind is just like, just going like I'm just so excited with some of what you've shared so far. But sometimes we have solutions, but these solutions are not sustainable. They start well, we start like we're horses. We're running and we're doing exceedingly well. And for whatever reason, the progress is halted. What do you think we can do as a society in St. Lucia to reduce that sort of thing to help us be more sustainable, more resilient in the face of the challenges that might cause us to halt our community solutions? How can we be more sustainable?
Well, that's a, I mean, I wish I had the answer once more. But what comes to my mind immediately is that we all have to do our part and be responsible. Because how many of us, yes, we're donating our time to maybe the church once a week or something, but that's not enough. We're not doing enough, I'm sorry. We're not giving enough. And we all work in a social environment. We are not business people oriented, but everyone, may you be a business person or someone in a church, we all need to give back. And if something is calling, then let's go for it. Because it's an easy thing to say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to help that person on the street or pick up that dog on that road. Well, just do it. I mean, yeah, I think we have to be more involved.
Another way is, as we have mentioned, that we cannot do it by ourselves. And partnering with other organizations and including the people we're working for. On my part, I work for mothers, so including the mothers, getting them, making them partners of the organization. Because in my organizations, the mothers are like co-creators, and we work with them, and we work according to their needs. So we have support groups, and based on what they share, we know what they need, and then we go out and we find the need. And you find that those mothers would hold me accountable. We normally have weekly meetings, and if I miss a meeting, they would check on me. They would call me, hey, what happened? Are we on tonight? So partnering is important, and it helps us take accountability. Consistency and discipline, definitely is important. Yeah, community, most important. Doing it as a community is what will make us accountable.
So, I hear you. I do hear you. I agree with you too. And I think what you said is very pertinent. But what I want to know is, sometimes, people get volunteer fatigue.
Yeah.
People feel like they're always the one doing it. And it's like, I'm always the one at the forefront. I'm always the one contributing, giving the money. I'm always the one making the presentation. I'm always the one there. How do you target that? How do you remain sustainable despite all of these challenges?
I can answer that. And I'll answer based on the experience that I had starting my foundation. I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people is very, very important. When I started my foundation, I involved my friends. I involved people who were around me. And clearly, they did not have the same passion and the same vision that I did. And slowly, I understood that. I understood that this was not their passion. And sometimes we may see a potential in a person that they don't see in themselves. And we want to work with them, we want to partner with them. But is that what they want to do? And we call onto people, to join us in a fight that they really don't want to fight for. So associating yourself with like minds, people who have the same vision and the same passion as you, is very, very important in accomplishing goals, in accomplishing what you set out for. Because when you slack off, they're going to be there to pull you up. They're going to be there to check on you. They're going to be there to say, hey, I don't like how this is going. And being able to accept criticism, as constructive criticism, most definitely, being able to accept criticism is important as well. Because we have to understand that the movement we're on is not for ourselves. It's for others. It's for the community, it's for the vulnerable, it's for those who need. So if I make a decision and my executive sees, hey, this doesn't make sense to our organization, you know, I have to listen. Now, because they have the same vision and passion as me, they pay attention and they see, hey, this is not going to work. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do you want to contribute anything, Ms. Tusa?
It has to do with structure. It has to do with structure and planning. And anybody who probably know me know that I'm very passionate about that. When it is that we form whatever organizations or groups. So for example, the Community Services Unit at the Ministry of Equity deals with group and clubs and group formation. That unit specifically deals with that. But some of the things that we see over time is not just the deterioration of those groups, but you recognize that even pre-COVID-19, you had groups that were just there. People come together and at a specific time, the group becomes vibrant, and then after a couple of months, it dissolves, it no longer exists, disintegrates. And like you rightly stated, everybody has to be on the same wavelength and purpose. What enables those that are thriving to be alive and to stay alive and to remain alive, sustainable, is the fact that they have a very solid foundation. They have a structure. You have meetings, you have monthly meetings, you have AGMs, you have this, you have minutes of meetings, you have accurate records, you do whatever. For us at the ministry, one of the new changes that will be coming, it has to do with NGOs and legislation that will guide NGOs. So your non-profit organization, no longer will people just be creating groups or just applying to, but we hold you accountable for this. Where are your records? You need to give us this at the end of every year. And it is because of the changes that's happening globally. There's greater demand for the state now to react. So there's greater need for the state to make sure or to ensure that those groups and organizations are not part of money laundering. They're not part of human trafficking. That we can monitor them and we can give good representation at the end of the day. So for me, it has a lot to do, the sustainability component has a lot to do with structure and with proper planning.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that. Because, you know, sometimes we talk about things and we talk about it in a lofty way, but we have to kind of like bring it down to the basics so that anybody who is listening, anybody who probably has an organization going through these very things, they can get some nuggets from what we're discussing here today. But if we're speaking about it too abstractly, it's like, okay, I hear you, but like, how do I get out of where I am now? So that is why I was prodding a little more so that I could get some of that from you. So thank you all for your contributions on that. Now, sometimes one of the things that happens is that we have partnerships, great partnerships. For example, entities such as USAID, Global Leaf, Global Canada, Global Affairs Canada, and so many other entities coming into St. Lucia, and they have funding, and they start some wonderful programs, and these programs cannot continue. They're not sustained when the funding is pulled, right? We have seen that time and time again. And so financial sustainability is equally important for communities as well as community groups. How can groups be more financially sustainable? What do you do in your organization to ensure you're not leaning too much on one partner or a couple of partners, and so that if one or two partners decide, I'm going to cut funding for this, you're still alive and kicking?
Well, we are still a baby organization. So on a financial end, we're still learning the ropes. But one thing I have realized is that grant funding is the most solid financial foundation we can depend on. And when we have programs, we face the business organizations, and they do help out. But I mean, the assistance that they give is just on that level, just for that part. It doesn't go beyond the program. But in order for an organization to be solid when it comes to finance, first off, we need to put in the work to show that we are a solid foundation. And what we say we set out to do is what we're going to do and what we're doing, you know. And I mean, it's on that basis that we apply for grants. So I think the most solid foundation that we can say we can have are grants.
Anybody else has a contribution?
I've been looking for the word in English and I cannot find it. When you have other foundation giving you money, or someone, like in French we say mécène.
When you have what, sorry?
It's like a sponsors, but it's money that cannot be deducted from taxes and everything. It's really like a donation. No, it's not a grant. It's not a grant, yeah. So it's also like at the sorority, that's also why, like, we also have grants, of course. We also apply for grants. But as we all know, it's very time consuming. And that's also when being super specific on the follow-up and everything, what you were saying, Miss, being structured, well structured. Yeah. If you want to apply to grants, you have to be super structured. But as you mentioned as well, grants can be stopped. I mean, you all know what happened with USAID. So unfortunately, when we depend on grants, and that's a challenge. Yeah. But it is a solid contributors. Try to diversify the different grants as well, not focus only on the one. Yes. Some small grants for one small action can actually be something. The sponsors from different associations as well. Yeah. But it is one of the challenges. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll use the word symbiosis. Because our community, I mean, belongs to all of us. Yes. The businesses, the state, and the lady from the foundation, Mother's Foundation, she spoke of creating an impact, creating an impression, allowing possible funders to recognize the value in those programs running. So we complain a lot about young people, that they tend to engage in activities which is destructive to the community and the economic sustainability of the country. So you have businesses established, they spend so much on security, for example. So imagine if we're able to achieve a safe enough environment that you don't have to invest so much in security, your business can thrive, the country can thrive. And that's the focus of the team program, that we interact a lot with the business community, have them recognize the value in what we're doing, because having those young people undergo the program, there's twofold benefit. So they now have more competent, able individuals to join their workforce who are now not on the street creating that undesired environment. So that is one means, I think, besides the grant funding, we, the community, need to accept that we have to take responsibility and not rely solely on external forces, contributors to help keep us. So for me, symbiosis, that the funders can see the benefit to them by investing, and those invested who receive from the investment can benefit. So I think we need to look, as much as grant funding is available, but we need to focus on community to support the initiatives.
Okay, thank you.
You're
And Ms. Tanzi?
I think it's important for us to think, when we talk about inclusion, communication is very important in inclusion. And I want to bring it out, especially from the ministry's standpoint. When you look at some of the work that we do at the community level, St. Lucia is unique in that the way that community services operate in St. Lucia is not necessarily the way that it operates in the other Caribbean states. You have social transformation officers assigned to each district. And in some instances, a district may share two, depending on how it is that it falls. However, one of the ways that you could actually support some of this funding and exposure is through communication and using the officers that are rooted in the communities to actually highlight some of the programs. So we find in some of the very active communities, some of the very groups may go through their social transformation officers, who will then engage the Ministry of Equity in terms of the communications unit to showcase some of their work and work on some of the, probably they're observing, there's an observance of something, an international day is coming up. But you showcase that and we're able to bring it out because the communication group is not there just for us at the ministry. It extends, the invitation extends to the groups and the organizations that we help. And once that dialogue and that networking is in full force, you can now get the chance to utilize the resources of the ministry that your group probably doesn't have to actually market your group or your organization. I don't think we do it very well here because people don't understand. They think that you're getting into their affairs or their business, but it's not that. We're just trying to help. Trying to help, so you have an activity, you're ready to bring out something important to the community or to St. Lucia. There are ways of doing it without a cost. So you eliminate the cost factor, and then you can get your goal achieved.
That's very good. Thank you. Now, from what you're saying here, I see, one, we need grant funding, we need sponsors, we need to engage the community because from the community we have so many resources, persons who might be willing to contribute. But also, without that being communicated, without that being exposed, because we need that sort of exposure. I sometimes am a bit in the dark with certain things. I am on my phone a lot, and sometimes I still find that something has happened and I don't know that it has happened. So if you're looking for funding, if you're looking to be more sustainable, if you have a community group, if you're looking to innovate, you need to put it out there. You need to share it. You need to get that level of exposure. Outside of that, though, there are some systemic barriers to inclusive participation in the innovation economy. What is that saying? Of course, everyone would like to step out and innovate, as is the theme globally, right? Everyone would like to participate, everyone would like to innovate. But there are some systemic barriers that we find when we're trying to innovate. And some of these can be in finance, in infrastructure, in culture, in policy, right? How do we address these systemic barriers? Ms. Tanzi, from a policy perspective, I'm calling on you. Thank you, Ms. Tansy.
I think earlier on I alluded to that. I spoke very vague about advocacy. Sometimes you may not be able to, on your own, do everything. And because you have alliances and you have your neighbors who are going to be rallying with you because they're your partners, they're part of your network, you advocate for change. So the advocacy, and sometimes when we hear about advocacy, people always think it has to be very brutal or very, yes, with placards and billboards and whatever.
Yeah.
But you can advocate silently and call or champion meetings and with the relevant persons and relevant parties to actually fight for change. So I think foremost is advocacy.
You have a contribution to make?
Yeah, it's a contribution, I guess. I'm going to talk about women specifically,
Yeah.
and how we could maybe have access to innovation a bit more by giving two numbers that I think are very striking. If a woman faces gender-based violence, she is losing 4 years regarding innovation, because the time it will take her to get over it and be able to innovate and dedicate time to innovation is known to be an average of 4 years. So if we tackle gender-based violence, then we're also helping that typical public to innovate. And the other number, and it's also for women, is if a woman belongs to a network, then she actually innovates 2.5 times faster than if she's doing it on her own. So it speaks for itself. The group, as we've been saying, the community, belonging, we've been saying that since the beginning, but those two numbers, I think, are related to,
Yes, I agree. Very striking. 4 years, you said? 4 years. Yeah.
4 years lost of just time needed to recover. And if I may add another number, in the Caribbean, 1 out of 3 women is a victim of gender-based violence. 1 out of 3. So we're 3 women here. Easy.
Yeah, so we definitely have to do something about addressing these systemic barriers, such as increasing our advocacy work, such as, of course, building communities and spaces, safe spaces for women, and being that pillar of support in the community. Now, we haven't really touched on social enterprise, and when I asked you what are some ways that you could be also financially sustainable, I was thinking at the back of my mind, maybe somebody will say social enterprise, but you guys didn't. However, we need to touch on social enterprise as a bridge for the community needs and, of course, market opportunity in St. Lucia. My question to you, panelists, is, do you think social enterprise is a great way to bridge that gap? Okay. A social enterprise is typically a business that operates for social or environmental concerns. It addresses social and environmental concerns. For example, it can address GBV, it can address sargassum flooding, our seas, our riverbanks, and our ocean fronts. It also is generally not as much for profit, but for the benefit of the community.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, like us, not me. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes. So, do you think it is a great way to bridge that gap? Can it actually bridge that gap?
I mean, I hope it can, because if not, what the point of trying to find solutions?
So to what extent, can you give an example of something, one of your experiences in your own organization, maybe feedback you've received from somebody who has benefited from the sorority in terms of the impact that it has made?
Can I give an example from my previous capacity?
Sure.
So I was the executive director of Alliance Française and executive director of all Alliance Française in the Caribbean for 4 years. And we created an event that's called the Walk French and Fun all over the world, 6th of April. That's the day to promote peace through sports. So it's a sport event, you do whatever you want, but you have to promote peace through sports. And on that event in St. Lucia, we made sure it was inclusive. So we had the Blind Welfare Society walking with us. We had some inmates from the Bordelais facility walking with us, of course with all the proper security. No one knew they were there because they were dressed in plain clothes. We had the Boys Training Center and the New Beginnings Transit Home. And I'm just bringing that up because just a month ago, I met one of the boys from the Boys Training Center in town. I recognize him because we gave them backpacks. So he was wearing the backpack and I was like, this backpack did not come to St. Lucia by itself. I need to go and talk to him. So I meet him. I'm not going to give his name for privacy. And he's like, Miss, like, so happy to see me. And he's like, you know what? That walk changed my life because he did it 2 years. The first year, the walk was just from Roseau to the pyramid. 12K, a little bit of, I mean, we have to go up and down the morns, and we have 2 morns, for those who know. The first year, he did like the first K, jump on the bus from the Boys Training Center, and was dropped Pointe Séraphine. Of course, I mean, he scored well. It was like 10 out of all the people because he didn't run anything. So I just put him apart and say, this is not okay. Like, you have to face the consequences, but in your mind, because you know you cheated. So you know you didn't face the event. And then another year went by. We work with the Boys Training Center regularly, so we got to see each other. Race comes. He ran, finished 3rd of all the boys, changed his life, and he told me, he's like, if I didn't face that I am responsible of my action, I don't think I would be where I am today. So today he's working 2 jobs. He's back living with his parents. He's making money. He's over 18. And the fact that he told me this sport event changed my life, I think that speaks for itself.
That must be also very affirming, and it helps you feel like the work you've done really contributes to.
Of course. Of course. I wouldn't be in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
Yeah. On a social level, we address things like mental health, family stability, access to support systems, social inequality, education, awareness. So I would say on a social enterprise, it can help, it does help when you address the social issues that we face in our foundation. Our social issues and mental health is one of the top priorities on our agenda. Postpartum depression and mental health among mothers. Yeah. And amongst that, we touch on family, genders, and family, issues and everything else. And when you do address the social issues, it bridges the gap. It helps fix those problems, or at least it addresses the issues that our community has and our community is going through.
Thank you. Thank you all for your contributions over this panel. I think I learned a lot from you, and I hope that the audience did too. I feel challenged by some of the things you said, and with the theme, the global theme being step out and innovate, and with some of the contributions that you made, that all of us have a part to play, that the community, the government, private sector, everyone, every individual can play a role. And so I'd like to encourage each and every one of us, even as we're leaving this discussion, to think of what can we do to be more inclusive? What can we do as we go out to step out and innovate and to build a more fair and equitable society in St. Lucia? Thank you, panelists, for everything that you've shared. Thank you, audience, for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having 4 mothers.
Thank you. Welcome.